My name is Emily Carson. For years, I avoided family reunions like the plague, especially after Mom died. The silence that followed her death was loud and suffocating. But this year, I told myself I was ready. Ready to face the past, to reconnect with the people I once called family, hopeful, maybe foolishly so. The sun was soft and warm that afternoon, casting golden light across the garden where laughter and music floated like a fragile dream. I stepped in, heart pounding, trying to hold myself together. Faces I hadn't seen in years smiled politely, some with a hesitation that mirrored my own. For a moment, I almost believed it might be okay. My father was there, sitting under the old oak tree. He hadn't looked at me once since I arrived. I told myself he might need time. But then, something shifted. The music seemed to falter. Conversations quieted. The air thickened. Suddenly, Dad stood up. His eyes locked on mine, sharp and cold. "You're not welcome here!" he shouted, voice cutting through the garden like a knife. The world froze. People stopped dancing, stopped talking. All I could feel was the heat of humiliation creeping up my neck. My heart shattered in slow motion as tears pricked at my eyes. I wanted to run, to disappear. But I didn't, because this was my family, my past. And no matter how much they tried to erase me, I was still here. As I turned to leave, clutching my purse like a shield, I knew I wasn't walking away empty-handed. There was something I had found just a week earlier. A letter, tucked inside Mom's old jewelry box. A letter sealed in her handwriting, dated 20 years ago, addressed, "To be read when they try to erase you." That letter was my lifeline, my truth, and I was ready to make them hear it. The moment my father's voice sliced through the garden, the world around me collapsed. I felt every pair of eyes fixated on me, the heavy silence pressing down like a storm. "You're not welcome here." The words echoed inside me, a cruel hammer pounding on my heart. I froze, unsure whether to cry or fight. The people I hoped would embrace me instead looked away or whispered behind their hands. My mother's absence hung heavier than ever. It wasn't just rejection. It was a declaration that I was erased, as if I had never existed. I wanted to shout, "Why? What did I do?" But my voice was caught in my throat. Years of silence, of unanswered questions, suddenly exploded in that single moment. The family I longed to reconnect with had made their choice. I turned slowly, my back aching, under the weight of their coldness. The garden, the place that once held laughter and memories, now felt like a cage, closing in on me. Humiliated, my eyes blurred with tears I refused to let fall. I clutched my purse tighter, feeling the crumpled edges of something hidden inside. It was more than a letter. It was my mother's voice, reaching out from the past. I walked away slowly, each step heavy but purposeful. Their rejection hurt, but it didn't break me. I wasn't the scared girl who had been shoved aside for years. I was someone with a story they didn't know, a truth buried under decades of lies. That letter was proof that I belonged here, proof that I was the rightful heir to the family estate, and proof that the man who stood before me, the father who disowned me, wasn't who I thought he was. As I disappeared into the quiet beyond the garden, the letter's weight in my purse reminded me of what was to come. This wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. That letter, my mother's final act of love, was everything. I found it just a week before the reunion, tucked away in an old jewelry box she had left behind. The box was covered in dust, worn and forgotten, like so much of my past. Inside, wrapped in delicate tissue, was the envelope. Her handwriting, flowing and familiar, sealed tight with a quiet determination. The letter was dated 20 years ago, addressed simply, to be read when they try to erase. You. The word sent a chill through me. It felt like Mom had known, somehow, that the day would come when I'd need to fight for my place. I had read and reread that letter in my small apartment, the words sinking deep into my skin. She wrote about the lies, about the secrets buried beneath our family's polished surface. She revealed the truth no one else dared to speak. I wasn't just a burden. I was the rightful heir. More than that, my uncle, the man everyone called family, was actually my real father. It was a secret that shattered everything I thought I knew. Every memory, every conversation suddenly took on a new meaning. The confusion and pain mixed, with a fierce sense of clarity. For the first time, I understood why I had been pushed away, why the silence had stretched so long. The letter was my mother's way of protecting me, of giving me the strength she couldn't. She handed me a key to unlock the truth, to reclaim what was mine by blood and love. I clutched the letter tight, feeling her presence like a whisper beside me. This wasn't just paper. It was my shield and my weapon. That day, as I stood in the garden, I knew I had to read it aloud. I had to make them hear the truth, to face the family that had tried to erase me. And I was ready. I stood in the center of the garden, heart pounding, clutching the letter like a lifeline. The sun filtered through the trees, but all I could see was the faces around me, curious, suspicious, some confused. I took a deep breath, and then I began to read. My dear Emily, the letter started, her handwriting flowing like a tender whisper from the past. She wrote about the lies that had been told, the secrets buried beneath years of silence. She revealed truths that tore through the carefully crafted family facade, truths that no one was ready to hear. She explained how I was the rightful heir to the family estate, the bloodline that had been denied to me. And the biggest shock of all, my uncle was not who I thought he was. He was my biological father. The garden grew quieter with every word. I looked up and saw the shock ripple across their faces, the frozen expressions, the wide eyes. My father's face went pale, and I could see the fear behind his eyes. Eliza, my cousin, looked like she might faint. I wasn't just a girl they'd pushed away. I was the center of a truth that had been hidden for decades. The weight of the silence was heavier than any scream. They wanted to deny it, to bury it again. But my mother's words held a power they couldn't ignore. They had been living a lie, and now the truth was breaking through. I finished reading, my voice steady but filled with everything I felt: pain, betrayal, and quiet strength. When I folded the letter, I looked around and said, "This is my family's truth. It's mine to claim." The reunion that was supposed to be about smiles and memories had shifted. It was now a reckoning, and I was ready to face it, no matter what it cost. The garden felt frozen in time as my words hung in the air. The laughter, the music, all of it stopped. Faces that had moments before been warm and familiar, twisted into masks of shock, disbelief, and fear. The weight of my mother's letter pressed down on us all, an invisible force exposing the cracks beneath the family's polished surface. My father sat motionless, pale as a ghost. I could see the tight clench of his jaw, the flicker of panic in his eyes. For years, he had kept this secret buried deep, hoping it would stay hidden. But now, it was unraveling before him, raw and undeniable. My cousin Eliza, once so confident and untouchable, looked small and vulnerable. Her usual sharp smile faded into silence. She wasn't just shocked, she was scared, as if the ground beneath her had shifted and she was losing her footing. Others around us whispered, casting furtive glances at one another, unsure how to react. The family reunion had become a battlefield of unspoken truths. I saw friends and relatives who had once treated me like a stranger, now wrestling with the reality that I was more than they had believed. I stood there, heart pounding, feeling the eyes on me. The pain of years of rejection and silence boiled beneath the surface. But I held it back. This was my moment to be heard, to reclaim the place I'd been denied for too long. No one said a word for what felt like an eternity. The silence was thick, suffocating, and louder than any argument. Then, finally, my father's voice broke through, shaky and low. This isn't how it was supposed to come out. But I shook my head. The truth has a way of coming out. No matter how hard you try to bury it. I looked around, locking eyes with those who had doubted me. I was no longer the girl who would disappear quietly. I was standing tall, a force they couldn't ignore. The reckoning had begun. After the reunion, everything changed. The truth that spilled into the garden opened a door I had never dared to push. I was no longer a silent outsider. I was a woman on a mission to uncover the full story. My story. I spent sleepless nights, digging through old family albums, faded letters, and whispered memories. Every piece felt like a puzzle, fragments of a past that had been deliberately shattered. Mom's secrets were scattered, but I was determined to find them all. I talked to distant relatives, the ones who had once smiled kindly at me, but never spoke of what happened behind closed doors. Some didn't want to talk. Others told half-truths, wrapped in fear and regret. But each conversation chipped away at the lies. The deeper I dug, the clearer the picture became. The man I called Uncle had always been something more, my real father. A truth so carefully hidden that it felt like a betrayal by everyone I had trusted. My mother had loved fiercely, protecting me even when it meant keeping secrets that tore families apart. I found old documents, legal papers that confirmed what Mom's letter had said. Proof that I was the rightful heir to the family estate, the home and legacy that had been kept from me. It was a cold reminder that the life I thought I had was built on deception. The pain of betrayal hit me hard, but beneath it was something stronger. A quiet resilience. I wasn't just a victim. I was a daughter fighting for the truth, for the love I deserved, for the family that should have been mine. This was no longer just about a reunion or a letter. It was about reclaiming my identity, my place, and my future. Was ready to face my father, to demand the answers and respect I had waited years to hear. I never thought I'd stand in front of my father and say the words I'd kept bottled inside for so long. But there I was, holding the proof in my hands, looking into the eyes of the man who had hidden the truth from me my entire life. Why? I asked, voice trembling but fierce. Why did you lie? Why did you let me believe I wasn't yours? Why push me away when I needed you the most? He looked away, unable, or unwilling, to meet my gaze. The silence between us was heavy, thick, with years of secrets and pain. I could see the guilt flicker in his eyes, but it was buried under stubborn pride and fear. I thought I was protecting you, he finally said, his voice low. I didn't know how to face the truth myself. The family, they wouldn't accept it. I thought it was easier to keep you away. Easier. The word hit me like a punch. Easier to hide me, to deny me, than to be honest. But I was done being the secret they buried. I'm not a mistake, I said firmly. I'm your daughter. I deserve to be treated like one. The room felt smaller, the air charged with tension. Other family members watched quietly, their faces unreadable. Some avoided my eyes. Others looked away in shame. I wasn't just confronting my father. I was confronting years of pain, betrayal, and silence. But beneath the hurt, I felt something new strength. A quiet power that came from knowing the truth and refusing to let it be buried again. I told him I wanted answers. I wanted respect. And most of all, I wanted my rightful place in this family. the legacy my mother fought to protect. For the first time in years, I wasn't invisible. I was standing in the light, claiming what was mine, and I was ready to fight for it. The days after confronting my father felt like walking through a storm, uncertain, harsh, and relentless. But I wasn't turning back. Armed with my mother's letter and the documents I'd uncovered, I began the fight to claim what was rightfully mine. I hired a lawyer who listened without judgment, who saw me not as a troubled daughter, but as someone seeking justice. Together, we prepared to face the family in court, the very people who had tried to erase me. The battle wasn't just legal, it was deeply personal. Courtrooms aren't just places for laws, they're arenas for pain and truth. I had to relive every moment of rejection, every whispered lie, and every betrayal while standing strong in front of strangers. Family members who once ignored me now lined up against me, throwing accusations and old wounds in my direction. They called me greedy, a liar, someone stirring up trouble. But I refused to back down. This was bigger than money or property. It was about identity, about claiming the legacy my mother had fought for in secret. Every time I felt like giving up, I remembered her handwriting on that letter, the promise she made to protect me, even when she couldn't be here. The courtroom was cold and intimidating, but I stood firm. I told my story with a voice that refused to be silenced. The truth, backed by law and love, was on my side. There were days when the fight felt endless, when the pain threatened to swallow me whole, but the fire inside me kept burning. I wasn't just fighting for a house. I was fighting for the daughter I was always meant to be. And step by step, the tide began to turn. The day the judge ruled in my favor felt surreal. After months of legal battles, countless sleepless nights, and the weight of old wounds reopening, I finally heard the words I'd been waiting for. The estate, the family home, was mine. The rightful heir had been recognized. In that courtroom, I wasn't just a daughter fighting for her inheritance. I was a woman claiming her identity, her history, and the love my mother had protected with everything she had. My father and other family members sat silent, some with faces pale and unreadable. The truth had finally won, but the scars it left behind were deep. I felt a mix of relief and sadness. Relief that the fight was over. Sadness for the family torn apart by secrets and lies. Walking back into the house that had been closed to me for so long, the walls whispered stories I was only beginning to understand. Every corner held memories of a mother's love and a daughter's resilience. The house wasn't just a building. It was a testament to survival and truth. I started the slow process of making it my home again. There were broken things to fix, and quiet moments of healing to find. But this was my place. Finally. I reached out to the few family members who wanted to rebuild, who understood that love and forgiveness were part of moving forward. The past couldn't be erased, but it didn't have to define the future. For the first time in years, I felt whole. Not because I had won the estate, but because I had reclaimed my voice. I was no longer invisible or erased. I belonged. This was my legacy. The legacy my mother fought to leave me, sealed not just in a letter, but in the strength I found within myself. Now, I wake up each day in a house that is finally mine. The house that holds my past and my future. It's quiet here, sometimes too quiet. But there's peace in the silence. I've learned how to carry the pain without letting it consume me. The wounds from betrayal still throb, but they no longer define who I am. This home is more than bricks and mortar. It's a testament to my mother's love, a symbol of the fight I refuse to give up. Every room holds memories, not just of what was lost, but of what I've found. Strength, courage, and a sense of belonging. I've rebuilt my life slowly. I've found new rhythms in the solitude, filling the spaces with hope and quiet joy. There are days when loneliness creeps in, but I remind myself that I'm not alone. I carry my mother's voice with me, her love woven into every step I take. I think about Dad and the family I was kept from, the pain we all carry. I don't hold anger anymore, just understanding. Sometimes, healing means letting go, forgiving what was and focusing on what can be. They thought they could erase me, but I was here all along. The rightful heir to my story, this house, this life, is my new beginning. I'm writing the next chapter, not as a victim, but as a survivor. A daughter who reclaimed her legacy and found her place. And every time I step through the door, I remember who I am. I am Emily Carson. I am loved. I am whole.